right, and I believe we are live now. Hello, everybody. It's Uncle Grumpy, and welcome to Grumpy Tonight. Tonight, I'm here with our friend Ron Durbin. Ron, how's things going?
Insane, Grumpy, insane.
Okay, well, I want to jump right into it. First, for those that don't know Ron works in the cannabis industry as an attorney. He's got numerous clients who are business owners. He's also handled some patient issues as well. Ron, have you noticed lately I know you've been pretty busy, but is there any chance you've caught any of my posts lately or the theme of my posts lately?
Of the mess that we have going on in the state of Oklahoma right now, yeah, I've
Yeah,
caught them.
yeah, I've been kind of pointing out fairly regular different posts about different issues, and the end result being that I see this industry in real trouble. And a lot of people question why I would do that. A lot of people think I'm wrong, think maybe we just need one or two little fixes. I keep referring it to things like death by 1,000 cuts. You don't have enough
Right.
Band-Aids. And not to mention the just the basic bait and switch that was accomplished with the safety sensitive jobs issue pushed forward in any fashion,
Oh,
let alone the fashion that it was pushed forward in. So that
Grumpy,
to me that was the state of Oklahoma saying, the voters saying, we want legal access to medical marijuana and we want to be able to live our lives without any big changes. And the state said, well, we'll let you get high, but we're still going to fire you. And so that's what I
yeah,
see
look,
that as. So what do you think?
I get, you know, I get tons of messages every day, Grumpy, and I've shared some of them with you with the permission of the people who send them to me. Um, I probably get more messages about safety sensitive jobs and people who have written job offers that are having those job offers revoked when they disclose at a drug test that they are a medical marijuana patient. Those job offers are being revoked from them. And we're not talking about jobs where they're operating heavy machinery and equipment. We're talking about jobs. There was one guy who contacted me a couple of days ago. It was literally data entry, and his employer has classified that job as safety sensitive, and that's how they based the rejection. Every company is using that safety sensitive broad language to incorporate and cover everybody. I know that St. Francis here in Tulsa, it's my understanding that they put out something to all of their employees that said all of your jobs are safety sensitive, and if you are a patient and we drug test you and catch you, that we're going to terminate. I think they didn't say terminate. I think they said disciplinary action. But it is a fiasco of epic proportion.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. That's why I've suggested that there's no solution other than another petition. I mean, I don't
I
see we can't walk backwards. Look, I've talked this out with many people. Let's you and I talk it out. The way I
Sure.
see it, we agreed that everybody with $2,500 and $1 to buy a bud ought to be able to go in this business. And we didn't put any limit on the number of businesses. Hooray for us! Great job. Glad we did. Glad we stuck to that. Okay, so everybody that has a dream can follow it. So a lot of people have delved into this industry that shouldn't have. That's just the reality of it. And and unlike any other industry, more people have delved into it that shouldn't have than any other industry. In no other thing that you could think of would people sitting around on disability with farms that are paid for and barely scraping by suddenly put everything on the line to be a farmer again, or because they see this as some gold rush. Like everybody who gets a license is going to get rich. So the way I see it, we have people who risked it all beyond the number that would have normally risked it. So therefore, in my opinion, allowing the market to weed itself out is bad for the economy. It will be too big of a devastation. What do you think?
I disagree. I mean, the clients that I'm seeing, and at this point it's hundreds upon hundreds. They thought this thing through. They want to take the risk. They know what they're risking. What they didn't expect was that the state was going to come in behind this and essentially revamped the rules in such a way that it's made it where they have to come see me because they can't be in compliance without somebody interpreting what all these things mean. And look, that's the way it is in a lot of industries. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be regulations, because there certainly should be. But no, I still like the idea of the American dream. And I think most of these people who have gotten into it, kind of knew what they were risking, and they were willing to take the risk. The problem is that a lot of the regulations, and the ones that are causing people the biggest problems, are regulations for regulation's sake. Let me give you an example. If you're an Oklahoma business owner, and you say you've only been here, say you came a year before 788 passed, so you've not even, you've just hit your 2 years now. But if you've been here for less than a year, you're getting rejected on a transport agent license. Even though you own the business, you're getting rejected on a transport agent license because they put a 2-year residency requirement on an agent license. Why do we care if a company wants to hire somebody that just moved to the state to transport for them? If they can pass a background check, why do we care? It's regulation for regulation's sake.
So now the employees that are going to do any transport have to have been here for 2 years as well?
Correct, and it's created all kinds of problems on renewals, not just for them, but I've got people who've been in the state for 30 years. They've got a license to grow or process or to be a dispensary, and the state's now requiring them to submit additional documentation to prove that they've been a resident of the state for more than 2 years. And it's like, you've got the state system. My birth certificate was issued here. I've had a driver's license for 30 years. But now I've got to go find a mortgage, or I've got to go find a lease. And a lot of these people, the ones that we're talking about specifically, the ones that had a few bucks and a dream, maybe they've not lived in the same place. Maybe they didn't buy property. They don't have a mortgage that they can go show. They're having to go back and track leases back from old companies to try to show that they were in the state those years. Again, it's regulation for regulation's sake.
Well, let me say that don't misunderstand me. I don't think for 1 second that we should have stopped any of these people from trying this. And I have visited quite a few who got licenses to grow, and they're doing commercial grows on their own property, and it's a small piece of property, and I don't think they were prepared at all. And some of them are hoping to sell enough now off this last harvest to cover these new fees and next year's license. So, they're not even sure they're going to be around a second year. Now, again, I don't think we did that wrong. What my issue is, or where I see the solution that will help all these businesses, is an unlimited number of customers, because that's what they are. They're customers, okay? So, right. Again, this is why I think we just need to push for full access. Look, Oklahoma we're suffering the growing pains in 1 year that most states do in 10 for a number of reasons, because the way this program was set up, because the way it was written, because the way the lawmakers reacted to it, because of the way the health departments reacted to it. We've gone through 10 years of troubles in 12 months. So, some have said, well, we need to do rec or medical for 10 years before we do rec. We've gone through all the trouble. We just need, at this point, the customers for the industry to succeed, in my opinion. And by the way, this is mostly about industry issues tonight. For anybody watching, we're not necessarily addressing the patient issues, but the business issues. So, but what do you think? I think that's the solution.
Look, whether at this point, whether you're on board for medical or you're on board for full access, really what it comes down to is this: since we've been put in a position where we have to do something, and so at this point, since we've been put in a position where we have to do something, we might as well just go for it all, go for gusto, and set up the tax, set up the money where we have a no tax system for medical patients. We have the higher tax for recreational patients, and then we actually dictate where the state can spend that money. All that tax revenue, we dictate where it goes. So at this point, because of the way the state of Oklahoma has reacted to this and the things that they did with 1030 and essentially telling cities and counties, hey, by the way, you can ignore what the voters did, and these voters in these counties or these cities that have really dictatorial leadership, you can ban it. Well, if you're going to do that to us, I always approach things from the libertarian side. Government, get the hell out of my life. And so at this point, I'm behind an adult access. Let adults be adults. That's what I say.
Well, like you say, they've done this issue with 1030 to the businesses, and they've done the safety sensitive jobs to the to the patient. So it's been a bait and switch in both areas. In every
And
way.
not fix the DUI laws.
What's that?
And then not fix the DUI. They didn't fix the DUI laws or do anything else that they knew were problems. They didn't bother to fix those things. So they, it's one of those things of all these bills were to fix the problems with 788. Well, hey, if that was the case, then why didn't we fix all of those other issues? Why didn't we fix issues related and make sure that people couldn't be excluded from public housing because they're a medical patient, couldn't be fired from jobs because they're a medical patient? We don't fire people from jobs for being prescribed opioids. Why are we doing that? Why are we allowing businesses to fire people under the premises of a safety sensitive with such broad language for utilizing medical marijuana? I say the state has thumbed their nose at us, and at this point, let's go for it.
Well, in the case of the safety sensitive jobs, I have to agree with Lawrence Pasternak on this one. It's nothing less than bigotry. It's pure and simple bigotry. It has a urine test to determine whether or not you're worthy to work here or not. Has absolutely zero to do with an impairment test. It's not an impairment test. It has nothing to do with your ability to do your job. It's solely and only to determine if you're one of us or one of them. It's a purity test, and it's bigotry. It's legal bigotry, and I think part of a new petition needs to be, as I think New Mexico has done. I think it was New Mexico has done to take away their ability to outlaw testing for THC in urine tests. I think it's New Mexico's done that, where the employers can no longer do that. Maybe it was California.
There's been quite a few states that have done that.
So we need to make that part of a new petition. And again, look, some people think I'm throwing this new petition idea out there real fast instead of trying to figure out how to fix this program. But again, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's whack-a-mole. So you tell me, Ron, because the way I see it, the program is ripe for destruction if we do nothing. What do you think?
Well, and this is going to get in a little technical as far as a legal explanation as to why we have to do it, but you're familiar with the Broken Arrow case. So Broken Arrow, we got the injunction. It goes up to the court, goes up to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. The Oklahoma Supreme Court kicks it back to the lower court and says, okay, court, what's the impact on your decision of 2612 and 1030? How do those new laws impact your interpretation? And what the court has come back and said is, well, because the state has argued in the way they wrote it, they're arguing that it's what's called clarifying language. So they're going to apply a law retroactively and say that, hey, cities have always had the right to ban it. They've always had the right to zone the hell out of it. And so they're applying a law retroactively. And obviously I don't know how the Oklahoma Supreme Court's going to come out because we're still fighting in the lower court on whether or not that's the final adjudication. But if that stands, then all these counties that adopted all these ridiculous things that we've been able to beat back, we're going to lose that. So we have no choice but to run another. We have no choice but to run another petition. There is zero choice but to run another petition. If they're going to classify and allow these things to come in as clarifying language and then apply retroactively, we essentially give the legislature all the power that they wanted to screw us. And there's some reasons why I was going to challenge 1030 and try to get it thrown out, but there's some reasons why, and I don't want to explain it here because I don't want to give anybody else an idea, but there's a reason why I don't think legally I want to open Pandora's box of challenging the legality of 1030 because I think it opens up some doors to challenge potentially 788, and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
Okay. Well, it's death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, it's whack-a-mole. It's nothing less than whack-a-mole. How many new clients did you say you had in the last week?
I did 25 new client intakes last week, and
what's the reason for the sudden rush?
Most of them, I will say, is the certificate of compliance problems. They're having a problem getting them the certificate of compliance signed to get their license renewed.
Could you explain that some for those that don't know much about it? Can you give a quick rundown on what that is?
Yeah, Senate Bill 1030 added some language that says that you have to be compliant. I mean, 2612 had some language in there, but it basically says that you have to get your governing political subdivision, whether it be a city or a county, to sign off that you're in compliance with this list of like 8 things, like fire, zoning, building, all other ordinances, in order for you to even get your license renewed. And we've got an issue with some counties, refusing to execute them at all. Some counties just sitting on their hands and not telling anybody anything, not doing anything. Like Osage County, from my understanding from talking to somebody last week, Osage County hasn't even decided what they're going to do yet. So it's like these people are sitting in limbo. They can't get their license renewed. And then here's the secondary problem. The state has said, and OMA has said, that they're going to give people 30 days past expiration to get this stuff in. Well, the problem is we're getting close to 30 days for a lot of these people, and we still don't have resolutions with these counties. And then another problem with that is we told them that they have to have these transport agent licenses, but their OMA license has technically expired, so they can't apply for a transport agent license to be in business and transport their product.
And they have to have that for the compliance letter.
And they have to have that to be in compliance for inspections from OMAs. It is
wow.
It is all I do every day. And I've probably got clients that are pissed off at me on things not getting done fast enough, but it's because every day it's like I start my day going, okay, I'm going to do this from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. I'm going to get this accomplished. And by 8:10, before I even got started on it, my day is screwed dealing with emergency situations from more screwed up stuff across the state.
Okay, let me walk through this so that I understand it. Okay, the compliance letter. All right, you have to get a certificate from the fire marshal, from the a plumber, electrician. What all inspections you have to have?
Yeah, it's from the city or the county, and some of the, a lot of counties have been very nice, and they've not, they've signed them saying we don't have any of those ordinances, we don't have any of those restrictions. Go forth and have a good time. And
what I'm asking is, wait, what I'm asking, Ron, is didn't you already have to submit these approvals to the OMA? Didn't they already get those approvals?
No, not on the first round of licenses. They did not. That didn't exist with 788. That only came in on August 29th when 1030 and 2612 went into effect. So all of that is brand new, and that's what's causing so much problem. Is they rolled out this program where they're requiring these things, and then we didn't bother to tell cities and counties what we expect of them, how we expect them to answer the forms. Like I had somebody come in the other day, and the county had done they'd gone down the list and checked no. Well, no means you're not in compliance. What they meant to check was not applicable, but the county didn't know what box they were supposed to check, so the client had to go back and get it refilled out and re-signed.
I'm not talking about the compliance letter being something they had to submit already before this. Didn't they have to have some inspections before opening, before the compliance letter was ever spoke of? These dispensaries that were opening. What's that?
It depends on the county or the city. I mean, for most cities, yes. Most counties don't require that stuff for any other kind of business. They didn't require it for this. And the county's like, we don't care. Leave us alone. We don't want this unfunded mandate on our backs where we have to start doing inspections we've not done in the history of the state of Oklahoma. And they're basically shoving their middle finger up at the state, but at the same time, they're, putting clients in a very precarious situation of not being able to renew their license.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of businesses in that situation.
It is.
I don't know of any that have closed yet because of it. I saw a couple posts of some that said they were going to close before they even applied for it. They said that was the last straw, they were done. Do you know any that have shut their doors because of these recent issues?
Yeah, I mean, businesses like, for example, so a bunch of growers in Rogers County that were in less than 10. Rogers County requires 10 acres to grow. You cannot grow in Rogers County unless you have 10 acres of land.
Really?
9.99 is not good enough. It's got to be 10.
And that's a county thing. That's a Rogers County thing that they were allowed to do and that's something they were allowed to do because of 1030.
Yep, correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
In the whole county, that's it. Everybody.
Yeah, Rogers County. If you want to grow, it's 10 acres.
Wow.
And, it's one of those things. Well, hell, Grumpy. I mean, if it hadn't been for Scott working with Wagner County, we'd still be under the whole. And we didn't. It's not even fully fixed yet. But Wagner County required you to grow in industrial only in the county on ag land, where you'd had crops grown for the history of Oklahoma.
Yeah, since the land run.
Yeah. Well, since before then, when the Native Americans were here first. I mean, thought all this land was under cultivation, and now we can't freaking grow it because we're not industrial. In Rogers County, we can't grow it because we're in less than 10 acres. In Creek County, we can't process because we don't allow processing in agricultural land, even though we're just using heat presses or doing something that any other farmer could do to, the analogy I always use is apparently, you can press olive oil, but you can't press cannabis. Because
Really? What county is that?
That's Creek County. And then you've got cities that are completely banning it now. You've got cities that have refused to sign the certificate of compliance, even though these businesses were in existence. You've got counties who have now come in, and cities who have come in, and they've adopted ordinances now, and they're refusing to sign certificates of compliance, even though these businesses were there a year. And under the law, normally when you change zoning or change requirements, pre-existing businesses are exempted. And I think the law still supports that, but they're going to force these businesses to go litigate against them, and these businesses don't have the money to do it. And
Lawrence had mentioned a couple.
That's where mom and pop, just so we're clear, that's where mom and pop gets fucked. Excuse my language. Is they get screwed because they don't have the money to litigate like these big time people do. They don't have the money to lobby and do all the things that these big time growers can do. So the big ones with big bankrolls will survive. The small ones that get in these precarious situations, they're going to fail because they can't fight it.
So are they allowing any variance? Lawrence brought up something earlier. There's some places that got their door open. Apparently it mapped out correctly for their first license. Now somehow it's coming out like 950 feet away from a daycare. Is there no wiggle room there? Is that it? They're closed?
Well, a daycare is not part of the law. It's a preschool.
Okay, yeah, preschool.
And part of the problem is that goes back to that interpretation. If they're allowed to retroactively apply this new thing in 1030 that says preschool is included in the definition of schools, then those businesses that are there are screwed, completely out of business.
Where did they do that? Did they do that somewhere?
In the Broken Arrow case, the court has said that the court has interpreted and decided that 1030, and there's case law to support its position, but they said that because it's a clarifying amendment, that because it just clarifies what they meant, that somehow grandfathers it in and makes it retroactive back to day one of 788, as if that's what they always meant it to be, which you and I both know is utter and complete crap. But that's the way that court's interpreted. Now, look, that's not a decision from the Oklahoma Supreme Court, and obviously I'm not done with that. But that is I told you this from day one. The effect of 1030 is to kill this industry, and it is going to work very hard to kill a lot of it anyway.
Now, another reason why I think the only thing to do is push forward is we know that there's going to be a limited number of cannabis bills, like maybe 2, and there's no way to fix 1,000 cuts in 2 bills unless those 2 were to completely strike 1030 and maybe completely strike a couple other things, which isn't going to happen. So again, another reason why we must push forward.
Look, we have more than 200,000 licensed patients. We need 180,000 plus signatures on some initiative petitions. As I've told you before, I think we run a medical one, and I think we run a recreational adult use program side by side, put them both on the ballot, let the people decide which one they want. Hopefully they want, both, because honestly, we've got to run it in such a way where we fix both programs, because the medical program needs to be fixed in a very distinct way from the others. And honestly, patients having to pay for a license, I want to do away with patients having to pay for a license. If a doctor thinks it should be recommended, a patient should not have to pay for that daggum license. As you and I have talked about, if you have to have that kind of license for a patient, they should be able to go get it at any tag agency. We need to make it easier access to medication for these patients. So I want to fix them in 2 distinct ways. And I want medical patients to not pay tax, and I want rec patients to pay the tax, and I want the money to be set aside and earmarked for very specific things in the state. Once it pays for the regulatory agency, I want it to go to a lockbox for schools, so we can make our schools a palace and take the power from the legislature to use that money for things that we don't want them to use it for. And honestly, the other thing, provide low-income people access to medication too.
Something you said, I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out, because I've had these conversations with everybody, and I'm always asked, how do we distinguish the difference between the medical program and the rec program if we do this? And what you just said about finding a way where the patients don't have to pay for their cards, that is one of the best ideas I've heard, and definitely need to put that on the list of things to try and figure out how to do. Another one is with the testing, to just do basically a safety panel, which would be pesticides and heavy metals for a rec program or a full access, and then more of a full terpene panel test as well with a medical program could be another distinguishable difference.
Yeah, and they're definitely, the tax needs to be very different, because medical patients shouldn't be paying tax on their medication. Right. We don't charge it on any other medication in the state for prescription medication. So we should not be charging them at all a tax, let alone a 7% excise and an 8.157% on top of that, for a little more than 15% in tax. That's what it is in Tulsa anyway. It varies a little bit across the state, but all of this, this entire program it started so wonderfully, and I'm afraid that we're going to screw up the end game if we're not careful.
I think if we don't push a full access petition, then within the next 12 months, too many people in the businesses are going to give up hope. They're going to start to have more issues. People are going to be selling. I hear about businesses that are quietly up for sale on a fairly regular basis, at least 2 or 3 a week, that don't want anybody to know that they're hoping somebody will buy them out. So there's a lot wrong here. Now look, we've talked for about 30 minutes now about what's wrong, okay? And again, that's whack-a-mole. We could do that all night and never run out of new issues to talk about. So let's just acknowledge that the program's got issues. Now, what I'd like to talk about is the positives of what there would be in running a full access petition. For example, what I see as our biggest positive for the state as a whole, and again, today is about business, not necessarily about patient rights, okay? What I see is we have about 2 years to suck as much money into this state from other states like Texas as possible before the federal government does something and Texas has to do something. We could become a tourism destination, a medical tourism, or a cannabis tourism destination like Colorado was for so many years. And that is basically printing money. And I see no reason why the state of Oklahoma shouldn't do that. Give me a positive as to why you think this is a good solution.
Because for once in the state of Oklahoma, if we do this right, we have the ability to take our tax money and truly dictate how it actually gets used. Not how we want it to be used, not how we hope it'll be used once we put it in their hands, not how they promised us they'll use it, but lay out in the Oklahoma Constitution of how that money will be used, and do it in a way where the legislature can't adjust budgets for this new influx of cash. Because again, my thing is, we need to do a lot of work in the mental health field in the state of Oklahoma. We need to do a lot of work related to the homelessness in the state of Oklahoma. We need to do a lot of work when it comes to our schools in Oklahoma. And I think if we could create programs and ways where that money went into those things, and we didn't have all the bureaucracy and the special interests considered in how the legislature doles out money, I think we could put it to really damn good use in the state of Oklahoma. So that's why I'd be on board for it, for a way to have that tax revenue to do the things that we can't do otherwise.
Okay, let me pause 1 second. Folks, do me a favor. We've got, according to my screen, we've got about 92 of you watching right now. I think this is a really good, important conversation that needs to be a dinner table conversation at every dinner table. So please take a moment and share this while Ron and I are talking. All right, so
yeah, I'll share it to I didn't even share it to my I should share it on my firm Facebook page real quick too, Grumpy.
All right, good idea. So, I see a lot of positives. Now, I tell you what, a lot of people worry about the homeless population going up as it did in other states when they had rec programs begin. But I think the misnomer there is that people think that it was because people flocked there, poor people flocked there just to try and get free cannabis. When in reality, what it was, and Lawrence and I talked about this, was the property values going up, therefore the
Yeah.
rent going up, therefore the people that live there no longer being able to afford the places because became such a tourism destination.
I don't remember who
So
said it, Grumpy, but there's a famous quote. There's three kinds of lies. There's lies, damned lies, and statistics. And you can make statistics basically say whatever the hell you want, because like 100% of all people who consume water die.
yeah, I
So
like
I can make
that.
it
That's a
sound,
good one.
I can make it sound bad. And you know, it's one of those things. There's always going to be people out there detracting from it. There's Steve Kunzweiler, the district attorney for Tulsa, was trying to use statistics to basically say that cannabis can cause schizophrenia and all this other craziness. And what
I
he was doing
watched that.
he was using anecdote. Well, no, that wasn't even the one he was at. He was talking about to another panel I posted about. But it is just pure insanity, and it's anecdotal evidence used to support a position and skewed in such a way to support the outcome that they want it to have. So we have a homeless problem in the state of Oklahoma. We have a meth problem in the state of Oklahoma. We have an opioid problem in the state of Oklahoma. Let's use this wonderful medication that's helping so many people and not causing addiction problems and all these other issues that all these other things cause. And let's use this to try to help resolve those issues. I get pictures all the time. People send me, and I love them. They send me pictures of all their empty pill bottles saying, I don't use these anymore. I just use this. And I'm like, that's one of the things. It keeps me going, knowing that it's helping people.
That's great. That's great. I love hearing that. Well, I think at this point, the only reason why, or the resistance we're going to get is going to be from the bigots, and I don't use that word to call them names and to put them in a pile and say those are the bad guys. That's not what I mean. We're all a little bit bigoted in our own way. We are. Let's own it. All right, we are.
Sure.
But the
Sure.
cannabis bigots, the ones that believe that they should be able to fire anybody who gets a medical marijuana card, period, but not even concerned about impairment, but just for being one of those people. I think those are the minds we're going to have to change. That's where the resistance is going to come from those that don't understand, from those that truly don't understand.
It's the people who say that, oh, this isn't a medical program, it's a rec program. What I say to those people is, you want to see a rec program? Let us keep saying that. Fine. If you want to see call it a rec program and say it's nothing but a rec program, fine. Let's just give them what they've asked for. Let's give them the rec program.
Well, look, unfortunately, Ron, the reality is that 80% of our businesses, that's what they're working towards is a rec program. And the reason why they're doing it is because they need as many people in the door as they can get in the door. And again, that's why we need more people. We need to help them swing those doors open. Look, they're making distillate, Ron, they're making distillate with all this stuff that molded and or had issues, the outdoor stuff that's being harvested now. I know a lot of places are making THC distillate. The only reason for THC distillate is pens and edibles. It's for the head change. It's not the entourage effect. It's not the medicine that we like, that we want here. It's not the full plant. I know it works for some people, and I'm not trying to trash it, but we're making too much of that and not enough of the other stuff. Look, I'm helping a wonderful lady open a dispensary this Saturday between Elk City and Yukon, and all she wants is as much medicine type stuff as possible. I'm actually having to tell her, you have to be careful. If you don't have some of the high THC stuff, people aren't going to come in. But what I've helped her locate stuff. I went and saw some Harlequin that tests at 6% THC, 11% CBD, and we're getting some of that for her and some other things like that. But I don't see it anywhere else. I don't see anybody else growing that.
There are other growers that are growing high CBD based plants. It is certainly only one part of their repertoire. I do have to disagree with you that that edibles are not, that are not being utilized for medicine. I know.
No, Ron, you misunderstand me. I mean the edibles that have just straight distillate in them. Some people make their edibles with full plant with the full plant. Okay, some people use like butter or whatever. I had one earlier today. They use everything, and that's how it should be. Some are using distillate. They're just shooting distillate in it, and in some cases, as much as 1,000 milligrams into a brownie. Now, there's, that's just not in rare cases is that medicine.
No, I understand, but I mean there are. There was a pediatric patient, and what they were looking for was it was what their child had. The THC actually helped with. But they were looking for like 1 milligram microdoses so they could, because 10 was too much, and that's really the smallest dose that I've even seen.
Right.
So they were looking they're like, hey, Ron, is there any way you can help us get 1 milligram microdoses of this? Because our kid obviously doesn't need 10 milligrams. So it is being utilized that way, and a lot of patients utilize it, for pain and some other things where it can have effects there. So
right, Ron, but it's about 90% of the pins being sold are distillate, and the pins are one of the hottest items. In fact, if you get all the flavors, they fly off the shelves. The more flavors you have,
for sure. Well, but a lot of I will say that a lot of the companies that are producing vape carts, they are specifically adding, because the process removes the terpenes. They are adding back in cannabis-based terpenes.
Yes, some are. Yes.
I mean, all the ones I know of they're very proud of the fact, and like very specific. These are cannabis-based terpenes. We are adding them back in, and that is very important to them. So all the ones I know of that I represent, they're adding back cannabis-based terpenes into their pens because, they believe it's medicine.
That's great. Well, you have a lot of small businesses, don't you? You represent a lot of mom and pops. You represent the mom and pops.
I've got a lot of, I've got some that have really grown and taken off and have done really well. I mean, I posted a picture where I toured Helix Extracts. They're all over the place, and they add back in cannabis-based terpenes, and and Levi, the owner of that company, I can tell you, man, every time I go to one of these places and I tour, these people care. They're not like, Good. This is not about like, we're just trying to get everybody high. They truly care about what it is that they're offering. I mean, at least that's what I've seen with the people that I deal with.
Well, what I'm seeing in a few cases is a lot of them are getting desperate. They're having trouble keeping the doors moving enough. They're getting desperate, so they're having to lean towards the more. And they're coming to me, and they're saying they're mad about this. Okay, I'm not going to them and screaming because of what they're making. They're coming to me, Ron, and telling me that this is what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it's because that's what the market is asking for. I don't shop enough to come to that conclusion on my own. The growers and the processors are talking to me about it. And in the last 3 weeks, I've met with quite a few. So, but look, let me just
say this.
Go ahead.
Say this. Where that comes from is it comes from there's some education that needs to happen. People that are going in and buying medication are looking at things like THC level, and they've not been educated on, hey, look, a lower THC with these higher concentrates of CBD, G and N and all the other stuff can make working with the THC can make it more effective for the situation that you've got going on, and they're not being educated by dispensaries on that. So the problem you've got with processors and growers is they're being pushed out of the market because they've got a really effective product that has 17% THC and really high-end CBD based components, and they're having trouble selling it because the people coming into the stores have not been properly educated on how these things work in conjunction with one another. And then let me add on top of that, you've got labs who are selling results, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's another thing that Lawrence wanted me to bring up, which is something else I've been screaming about. And I'm going to have I don't have them with me right now. This person is getting me these 4 results. They sent 4 samples of distillate from the exact same batch to the exact same lab. They did not vary. They didn't go to 4 labs. 4 batches or 4 samples from the same container of distillate. Okay, not a bud where it's going to be different throughout. Distillate. 4 samples to 1 lab, and there was a 40% or a 40-point variance in the test results.
Look, I have a grower that ground up, and what's funny is the same number of 4. I have a grower that and I did this to get a true, accurate sort of picture. We ground up bud into you couldn't. It was microscopically ground up. I mean, it was the finest grind you could ever see, and took it and separated it into 4 and sent it to 4 different labs, and we have 4 different results. And I mean, these results, like one of them came back with like a 24% THC, and one of them came back with like a 15% THC. We have that wide a swing, and honestly, it's probably the 15% THC that's the accurate number. But you know, growers that do that, and we wanted to just test. We were basically testing because this client really cares about accurate results, and so we were actually trying to see if we could get 2 results kind of close to one another. Didn't even get that. It was just all over the board.
Lawrence and I were talking about the other day. He's come up with a new word, tertiles. The plant varies so greatly from top to bottom that you could end up with as much of it as a 10-point variance from the top to the bottom. But if you break it down into tertiles, which would be three groups, then you lower that variance to within like 5 points or something like that, and you still then have a variance, just much smaller. As I was explaining to him, market-wise, that just isn't feasible. Everything would have to be, I guess, processed. I don't know. I mean,
Well, you'd also have to have them harvest at the same time, and a lot of growers harvest tops and then let some light get to the buds underneath and develop those some more, and then they cut. They'll do 3 total trims, and so that unfortunately I don't think that works in that situation either.
Right.
Our whole not to bitch about something else, but our whole testing rules they make no sense. They are
okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the testing, okay? Let's go ahead and complain about the testing.
Where to start?
From what I've been told, the OMA only knows of 4 strains.
Strains, yes. Go ahead. I think it's 3.
Indica, sativa, Indica, sativa, hybrid, and what's that last one? I can never remember the name. Somebody will post it on. Somebody will post it. There's one more. Okay, and
yeah, 4 strains. I know that's true. That's true. That's the way that's the way the regulations and the law was written. That's true.
Okay, so well, you're a lawyer. I'm going to walk through this, and you tell me how I'm doing. I've got a room. I'm a commercial grower. It's only a 40 by 40 room, and I'm growing 6 different kinds. I've got some Blue Dream, which is an 80-20. Well, that's a hybrid, but that's an 80-20 sativa. I've got some Gold Leaf, which is a 60-40, but that's a 60-40 indica. Again, a hybrid. So those are both hybrids. Mm-hmm. And I've got 4 other kinds, which are also hybrids. And I'm not a very good grower. In that big room, I only come up with 10 pounds.
Yep.
I'm only responsible for 1 test, right?
That's the way it's written. That's the way it's written.
So then not 1 safety test to see that I grew everything the same and there was no pesticides and chemicals or pesticides or heavy metals. That would be okay if it was that. But no, even just the 1 terpene test.
Yep.
We've got 6 different kinds of cannabis. So we now not only have the variance of the plant, we have the variance of a completely different plant.
Yep, absolutely. You're absolutely 100% correct with the way it's written. And again, it goes back to what we've talked about before. They need people advising them that understand this industry. I only know as much as I do because I educate myself and I read voraciously everything I can. I go tour these facilities and learn about it and talk to but they don't do that. So what you just said, the scenario you just said is 100% the way the law is written. You could do that.
That's when I got a call this last weekend. I don't know if you saw the Tulsa World story. I was one of the many people.
Call you.
What's that?
Samantha had told me she was going to call you.
Yeah, I was one of the many people lucky enough to be in that story, and this is what I told her. That's why I said the testing's a farce. This is just a
Yeah.
joke. Beyond heavy metals and pesticides, what are we doing besides spending money? Do we all feel safer?
And it also, people would do those tests. The fact that, in Colorado, they're paying for full panel, they're paying 90 something dollars, and in Oklahoma, we're paying $400. That's got to get, something's got to happen there. That's ridiculous. The price, we always have a problem in the state of Oklahoma with price gouging. And the price gouging on these lab tests is just insanity. And only competition will, and apparently OMA's going to release some new regulations on the 1st. And when we're over there meeting with Gary Cox, I guess we're going to get new regulations to look at or something. But
now I know from somebody I had lunch with, not an elected official, but somebody else in the government, that there's like, since it's just you and me here, I'll tell you, there's like 17 labs about to go online. They're waiting for the LMA to roll out the rules. They're waiting for what it is you just mentioned because they don't want to play in this game right now.
Well, and they can't.
Because
OBNDD will not approve a lab anymore. I've got a client that really desperately wants to open a lab, but they can't even get open because OMA hasn't opened their portal. OBNDD, which was licensing previous labs, won't license them now because 2612 is in effect. So there's essentially been a moratorium on labs for the last 6 months or so.
So you're saying we can't add new labs?
We can once OMA rolls out and starts licensing them, but OBNDD won't issue a license for a new lab because one of the requirements for issuing a new license for a lab is an OMA license for laboratory testing, and those don't exist yet. So,
okay, it's the cart before the horse again.
Yep, it's just usually that's.
How many times?
When I say that I'm like I've never been so busy and feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. This is the stuff day in, day out I deal with. Hell, I'm talking. It's 8:49. I ended one meeting to come talk to you at 8 o'clock. It's not. As you can tell from my background, I'm still at my office.
Yeah, well, I have noticed in the more than a year that you and I have been friends, it actually takes you longer to get back with me than it used to. You're like busy. I can't just call you in the middle of the day. You're like in court and stuff. What's that all about? I mean, come on.
It's constant. Grumpy, I have right now, and this drives me nuts. I have 542 unread emails, and I delete junk. I have 542 unread emails. That's what's going on. And used to say, let's call it 60 days ago, Grumpy, that number would have been 0. Every day I would have read every email and done something with it. I have 542 unread emails.
Okay, so I want to talk about our meeting coming up on the 1st just a little bit. And before we do that, everybody, please share the video if you haven't shared the video. This is an important one. Everybody needs to be involved in this. We believe, I think Ron's with me on this, we believe it's time for a new petition. So please share the video. All right, let's talk about our meeting.
Real quick before our meeting, because people need to understand this. Petitions don't just happen out of thin air. It's not there's not some magic stork that drops a petition and all the funding in the laps of the ones who want to run the petition. This is going to every petition. What is it? The signature page can have 20 signatures?
Yeah.
So
I think 20, maybe 40.
Maybe it's 40, but fine. Let's say it's 40. So if we have to get about 100, let's call it 190,000 signatures is what we have to get. So if we do 190,000 signatures, and somebody else has probably already beat me to the math, but divided by 40, that means we have 4,750 full copies of the petition and the sheet. We can't remove one from the other ever. Just say that it's a 10-page petition, and we know that if we do it right, it's probably going to be 20 or 30 pages. So let's just multiply it times 20. That is 95,000 pages we have to get printed and distributed to people and mailed out to people and then mailed back in or brought back in. So I say all that to say, if you are behind the idea of a petition, then you need to be reaching out to me or Grumpy because we're going to work together on this thing. And
Yes,
again,
we
we've
are.
not decided. I want a medical and a rec, but we're still working out the details on that. But we need to know that you're ready to step up to the plate and help fund this because it's going to be expensive. There's just no way. There's no way about it. And I don't know, given our time frame, whether we're not going to need some paid signature collectors to get 186,000. If we got every dispensary on board, we got 200,000 plus patients. But again, it's still going to take substantial money. My guess is, and my estimate is, it's going to cost about $300,000 to $400,000 to get the petition successful. That's my guess.
The number that, yeah, you're there. The number that in most of these meetings that we've been at talking about these sorts of things, they're looking at about $500,000 to come up with to get the signatures. We do need signature getters or paid signature collectors. This petition should be run during the legislative session, as I've been saying for months. That puts us in the winter months. It's harder to get signatures in the winter months unless you have paid signature getters. This last petition that was run for the, not one of ours, but the one for expanding Medicare, I think they needed 178,000 signatures. We should need the same amount. So, but anyway, we're within that ballpark, just under 200,000. Now, I honestly don't believe we can count on the 200,000 patients to all sign, nor do I believe that we can count on all the dispensaries to participate. Because I talked to a lot of them that don't like the idea. They think that somehow they're only going to survive if we can keep out of state, and they think rec means out of state. And they don't realize the business down the street's already owned from somebody out of state. So, but
what people don't realize is that let's go for 2612 for a second. The language that is in 2612 related to out of state ownership and the new definition of owners to include more people. All it's done is made it harder for people to get family money out of state into the state because all those big businesses, all they're doing is they're signing royalty agreements, consulting contracts. They're siphoning off all the money through ancillary means, and they never own the company because they don't need to because they're siphoning all the money off of it through other contracts, which aren't covered, and there's huge, massive, gaping loopholes in the way 2612 defines an owner and doesn't restrict all those ancillary contracts that can siphon off every penny of money.
Well, as I said, back to the petition, I don't believe we can count on all the dispensaries. So paid signatures is definitely the way we're going to have to go, paid signature getters, and through the winter, through the session, into the spring. It's a rough time to get it. Lots of rain, sometimes snow. It'd be tough. People are going to want to get paid. And I know a lot of the activists that brought 788 to fruition don't want anything to do with it. They say they won't do it again. They feel cheated. I don't know how, but they feel mad at the state and don't want to help again. So it's not going to be, if we have the money for the paid signature getters, I think we'll get them in half the time that we're given. But if we had to do this the same way 788 came about, I think we would be pushing a really big boulder up a really big hill.
Well, remember, 788 only required about 60,000 signatures, I think it was. And, because it was statutory. And what we've got to do is we've got to do a constitutional amendment, which is why the signature requirement is so high. And, there are a lot of people who are miffed about what the state's done. And they're like, well, I've supported 788 and the state's just taking it all away. What they need to understand is with what you and I are talking about, this would be a constitutional amendment. The legislature would not be able to statute around the will of the people anymore. I'd hope that they wouldn't do that just because it clearly represented the will of the people. They've done it. Now let's just take it out of their hands. That's the only option.
Let me ask you a question, a little history here. The casinos, how'd we get that through? How'd we finally get that through? Was that a vote of the people?
That came through the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, IGRA, which was a federal law that says that they were approved for that, and then it also required states to negotiate.
Okay, the lottery then. Didn't we vote for the lottery?
The lottery, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And we said we were going to use it for education, but we put it in the general fund. So.
And that was but wasn't that a state statute like 788?
I believe it was a state statute, yes.
So it didn't require that many signatures to get on the ballot, and that would be why they were able to pull out of the general fund the exact same amount that put in the general fund, causing a zero-sum game or gain.
Yes. Yeah, giving our government the keys to the lockbox, the keys of the kingdom, has never proven to be an effective solution to anything. Every time I come from Mississippi, right, and so we had coast casinos that popped up, and we passed these things. It was all this money is going to go to schools. Well, that was a great idea. Do you think how much of that money do you think went to schools, or how much school funding was increased? They might say, "Oh, we put all that money in the school fund." Fine, but you then took that same equivalent amount of money and put it into other things that you wanted to do. So it didn't really. There was no net increase for schools in the state of Mississippi. It's the same thing here.
Okay. Well, then that's what we've got to avoid. We can't. That's
Yeah.
another reason why we can't let them have control. And
And it's
look,
also why we have to so carefully draft these constitutional amendments, because we've got to anticipate gaps. We can't have, we've got to close as many, we'll never be perfect, but we've got to close as many gaps as humanly possible.
well, we don't have that long to do it, so we better spend a lot of time on this app, sitting here doing some language and figuring this stuff out, because we've got to get it ready. And we can bring up to 75 people into this app at one time.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm
this app
on board. Yeah.
So I know you like to work with the crowds. I know you do. That's why I'm telling you this. We can work with like groups of 10 at a time, so it's manageable, and bring 10 people into this app and ask them, what do you want? What do you think? What's your opinion? And then get 10 more the next day. You just give me a schedule, and we'll start figuring out how you want to do that.
We'll sit
You're
down.
busier
We'll sit
than
down
I
and
am.
figure that out. Yeah,
You're
we
busier
will
than
sit
I
down
am,
and figure
so.
that out. Well, you
Go
know
ahead.
me, I'll go late. I don't know when I stop working. It's when I finally pass out at night is when I stop working. So I'm always willing to do stuff. You know me. It's just, um, unfortunately, Grumpy, the problem's been because August 29th was the rollout, and they, they did those rules in such a way, they threw everything into this dramatic turmoil right before renewals were due. And it's just, it has created a situation that is indescribable in terms of there's no law firm in the history of the world, I think, that's got more new intakes than I've had in the last month. It's not possible. And it's all because of what this legislature did and what the Department of Health has done with these regulations. All these people are scrambling and running around. I'm struggling to keep up, man. It's been tough.
One more thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up, because we're coming into an hour here, so we'll say maybe we'll do 10 more minutes roughly. But one of the things I've noticed that I want to point out, because it's really important for everybody to think about this. The people that originally got 788 on here, and the people eventually voted for this, and we said we wanted this, and at the same time that we said we wanted this, somehow we put more Republicans in office. Now, I'm not bringing this up to pick on the Republicans per se, but here's the issue. We now have more Republicans in control, and they seem to be, at least in this instance, they seem to think more taxes and more regulations is fine. They say,
yeah, the Republicans, they don't act like Republicans.
No, not at all. That's my point here. Is they don't.
Blows my mind. It blows my mind.
They act like just the money changers. I mean, it's just greed. It's just, well, where's my part? What do I get? I'm blown away by the reaction of Republicans, other than a couple of them. Okay, other than a few individuals. As a group, the Republican Party seems to be nothing like it used to be. Nothing like it used to be.
I've always thought that Republicans were for smaller government, less restrictions when not necessary, or for allowing businesses to succeed or die on their own, sort of that rugged individualism, Teddy Roosevelt type philosophy. I don't know what's happened to the Republican Party in the state of Oklahoma, besides the fact that they can't get over they have to act like the morality police, and so ergo they have to overregulate this industry, and like it's an excuse. Because I'm morally against this as medication, I therefore am going to leave all my other beliefs aside and do whatever I can. It's the same thing for abortion. They use that same thing. Well, we'll restrict it with all these laws, do all these things, because I'm against it morally, so therefore I'm going to do what I wouldn't do for anything else. I don't get it, Grumpy. And I associate. I'm further to the right than Republicans. I guess I would register as a Republican, but I'm a libertarian, and they blow my mind. I don't get it.
Well, I'd like everybody to think about it, because this is what makes this the perfect storm. That we're going into an election year while doing this petition. All this together at the same time is what makes this the perfect storm. This is what makes this possible for us, the people, to take back the power and to actually do it right this time. Now, when I say do it right this time, I'm not trying to say the people who did 788 did anything wrong.
No.
I praise everything they did, and thank God they did it. And they got through what they thought they could get through, and that's what we have. We're in a different world now. Different stuff we'll get through now. So 788 isn't nearly far enough for where we could, what I think we can accomplish now.
Well, it's not it's not that it wasn't far enough. It's that, unfortunately, I think, and they had no choice, but some faith was placed in the legislature to support the will of the people and not go back and change all this stuff. And that's not what we got. We got them coming in and changing things that didn't need to be changed for no reasons.
But that's what I mean. I mean, look, that's what I mean. Strategy. I'm hoping it was strategy wise. I'm hoping it was because they thought, well, the only way we're going to get it through is if we agree to let the legislator take control of it. I'm hoping. I would hate to think that they actually thought that was a good idea to give them the right to do what they've done to it.
Well, I think the problem has been our quick signature collection requirements and stuff. It's very hard to get that 100. I mean, without hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's almost impossible to get that many signatures in that short a period of time.
Yeah, for sure.
For
well, thank God they did it.
It should be hard to get a constitutional initiative petition on the ballot, but it shouldn't be that hard in that short a period of time. In which maybe we run a separate petition to fix that too. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
You know what? What I like about that is I think the same way. And what I mean by that is if you see something you don't like, get involved and fix it.
Yeah.
We can actually do it. If there's something that bothers you enough to say, well, maybe we'll run a petition for that too, then maybe we do and we actually fix it. It turns out, it took me a long time to realize this in my life, and I want everybody out there to start to understand that. It turns out we are in charge if we understand we're in charge and if we take charge properly. And that's not always with pitchforks and torches, but sometimes it is.
To look at a silver lining, I mean, at least we have the initiative petition. States like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, they don't have the initiative petition. And they don't have the initiative petition because they're former, there's a reason they former slave states, they didn't want the larger population to be able to go pass laws against them when the populist movement came about. But thank God we at least have it. We have the ability to do something about it. And you know what? I hear people say, well, we'll never get that passed. There's a lot of people who said 788 would never get passed. And you know what? At the end of the day, we can at least go down fighting. And I always believe if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. And, we'll let come what comes. Yeah,
I agree. Well, let me say one more thing about that Republican Party we were talking about. As individuals, I know some of them, and I find them pretty easy to work with and fairly open-minded, somewhat shocked by some of the taxes, as we've said. But we have a lot of new blood, and I don't think we've taken enough time to get to know some of that new blood yet. So I would ask everybody out there to not only go sign up at the CLA, which we've got somebody now who will be tracking the memberships there, but get to know your senator and your House member. They're probably a Republican. One of them probably is. I'm in an area where I have a Republican House leader, but I actually have a Democratic senator. So I'm going to go talk to him, but he can't do me a lot of good because they don't have any power. And the things we need to get moved actually are going to have to be moved by a Republican because that's the environment we live in. If it's not pushed by a Republican, it won't go through.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody go out there. Maybe your senator is the one that can help us here. We've got a lot of great ideas if we can find the right people to help push these bills. We're not going to vote all these people out of office. It never happens that way. We might be able to vote one or two of them out of office. Let's figure out who that needs to be and put our money where our mouth is. I know I'm going to, and work on removing them. And those that are on the fence, let's go see if we can get them to work with us. We don't always have to remove them. Sometimes we need to educate them.
Speaking of working with, I saw that the health department's going to put out the regulations related to waste disposal and the laboratories and some other things on November the 1st. And how many times have we offered, or how many times have we suggested that they build some boards or some advisory panels that have some industry leaders and some patients and some stuff like that on it? Or hey, I don't know, I know there are emergency rules, but maybe put them in the hands of some few people who might be willing to sit there and tell you, hey, you're going to have a problem here, you're going to have a problem here. You don't have to listen to them. You can, at the end of the day, if you read it and you don't agree with it, they could still ignore us. But, we could solve a lot of the problems if they would just put these things out without, sending them to the governor, and the governor just instantly signing these things without getting any kind of input from anybody. That's what drives me nuts, is that there's not been, with these emergency rules, they're not required to be open. They're not taking the initiative to try to find out what's going on and what's needed and what the problems are. Then they might be surprised that, we're a pretty easy to get along with group that really, I think, could explain to you why things need to be fixed. And if you don't agree with it, fine. But, they're not even doing that. So that's a problem.
Well, I know they're not doing that enough, but I know in at least one case, I know of a board that they asked for advice on the testing, and
they ignored them. Yeah.
And this board came up with 3 different ways they could fix the testing. And when they went to turn it into them, they said, no, thanks, we were working with somebody else. And then they rolled out this other stuff. So Who's that somebody else? I don't know, but I keep thinking back to where we were a year ago when they were trying to do no flower and a pharmacist in every dispensary. Is that who the somebody else is? The same people who were pushing that stuff back then? Could that be why we are where we are?
News alert. Because I asked, when we were down at the March on Oma, we did that open records act request. I finally got a response to some of it. And what their response was, that part of what we requested was basically almost any email or document referring to, marijuana, cannabis, some other words. And I got a response back that says, this will disrupt our entity too much to give you those documents. It's 700, gigabytes. And I'm like, I can bring you a terabyte drive. Yeah. All you have to do is hit copy and paste and let it copy. And it didn't take you anything other than letting the computer run. But they're trying to keep me from getting those documents. And my response is, that is not sufficient disruption. It might take you longer where you can't give it to me as quick as I want it. But that doesn't mean you just don't have to produce it because it's going to take you too much time or effort. When you told me the exact data amount, I'm like, you already figured that out. Right. Now all you got to do is go copy it somewhere.
Yeah, so, they've already done everything except for right click and copy. So
Yep.
The hard part's done.
The hard part's done. And so I'm going to send them a letter back that says, I've got a company. By the way, we're going to figure out how much it's going to cost and what they're going to charge me. But I've got a company that's that I know can go over there and copy that data for us. So I'm going to respond to them and say, hey, Advanced can come over there, copy the data for you. It won't take you any disruption. And, I don't know what Advanced is going to charge me to do that, but I got to talk to them. But I'm going to offer them a solution because I want all those documents.
Yeah, let me know. We'll help figure out a way to pay for that. All right, Ron. Well, we've been going about an hour and 10 minutes. You got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up for tonight?
There's so much, but for tonight, I think that we've covered enough.
Okay.
There's a lot more.
What do you think about doing this? Look, we've got a meeting with the new leader of the OMMA, or isn't it? On November 1st. Gary so Cox. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this another time or two between now and then? And again, you let me know what you want to do about this petition issue with working with people, and we'll put those groups together. Okay. Meanwhile, you and I, we need to get started. So, let's do that because it's time. It's time.
It is time. I agree.
All right. Well, before we go, I want to make a plug. I get to do that since, I get to do that. Again, I'm going to be doing a grand opening. I'm helping a lady put together a dispensary between Elk City and Reno. It's on 66 at Banner Road. It's called Cush Connection. She will be open on the 26th. I will be there. She's got a lot of great medicine, a lot of great stuff going on. You can look up everything going on. Everybody can look up her link as to what's going on there. It's Kush Connection. But the reason I bring it up is I'm going to have my new Grumpy Gear hoodies. Ron, what size do you wear?
XX large.
All right, XX large. I'll set one aside for you. These are going to be a little different than the other hoodies. These are going to be black with white lettering. It's going to have the white Grumpy Gear logo on the front chest. It's going to have Grumpy on the sleeves with the pot leaf and the pitchfork, just like the hoodie that I wear. But this time it's going to have something on the back. And I don't know if you guys can see it from there.
Yeah,
it's probably backwards, but that's what's going to be on the back. So I'm really looking forward to those. They'll be done in a couple days, and I'll have them with me on Saturday. So come out and see me. All right, Ron.
Awesome.
Let me know as soon as you want to do this. What's that?
I said good luck with that.
Okay, well, let me know as soon as you want to do this again. Again, I'm here every night. So
all right, we'll do it. We'll certainly do it at least once more before the meeting on the 1st, because I need some more input on things to discuss.
Okay, yeah, I've got a list. I sent you one list, but
I know I've got that, and I've got a list that everybody's put on my. So I've got a good list, but I've got to try to figure out we can't talk about 50 things. We got to try to figure out 6 things that are distinct.
Right. Let's go over it together, and we'll narrow it down. All right, stay right there for a second while I say bye to everybody so I can talk to you for a minute. All right, folks, we're going to end it for now, but as I've said, we will do this again at least once between now and our meeting on November 1st. We'll also work out a schedule to start working on this petition, at least partially publicly like this. Maybe we'll get some of you guys in this app with us, and you can participate. Maybe a bunch of us meet here sometimes at my place. Or something like that here in the city. We'll figure this out. We want everybody involved in this, and we are in a big hurry. We need to get this rolled out soon. January 1st is getting here, and, this needs to be registered and ready to go, and the year's almost over, so we got a lot to do. All right, folks, well, that's it for now. Until next time, stay grumpy. I'll see you on the road.